Super Nintendo, that would be the greatest system of all time. Greater than PlayStation 5, Xbox.
Angel Knot.
Salutations to the nations. What's good, Angel Knots? It's your boy Young Sinai. So today we're going to be looking at a video by Mr. Who's the Boss titled I Bought Every Nintendo Console Ever. Now, he has a really popular channel here on YouTube. I like a lot of his videos, but I've mostly seen his phone stuff. I haven't seen any of his gaming content. So let's see what he's talking about.
I've just bought every single Nintendo home console ever. We've got a TV from the time of...
He definitely has the budget to do that. Over here, not so much. So we're going to be looking at someone else buy all of the Nintendo consoles.
each one's release, and even the main Super Mario game for every single one. So let's see how much better the gaming experience has become. Nintendo's first home console, the NES, couldn't have come at a worse time in the West. The company had huge...
Technically, that's not Nintendo's first console ever. If you want to see their first console ever, be sure to check out my reaction to the original home consoles. Lucky, go ahead and share that link, please.
Success with their arcade machines. But when it finally came to entering the living room in the early 1980s, the entire video game market just so happened to be experiencing what's still known as the Great Video Game Crash of 1983. Put simply, everyone was making games consoles. There had become far too many to choose from, and every single one had their own separate, confusing selection of rushed, poor quality games. The entire reputation of a video game console was the worst that it had ever been, to the point where critics were even saying that gaming is a fad and that the entire concept would actually die out in a couple of years. But this didn't put Nintendo off.
They couldn't have been more wrong. But if Nintendo didn't take the wheel, that's definitely, you know, what it was going to be looking like pretty soon.
And in fact, they did something very clever to try and spin it to their advantage. They created a games console that looked nothing like a games console, and they called it the Nintendo Entertainment System to avoid the stigma that came with the term video game. They even bundled...
Which do you all prefer? And I've asked this before, but which do you all prefer? Nintendo Entertainment System, or in Japan, Famicom, Family Computer? I really like Famicom. That sounds super dope. I used to think it sounded dumb, but no, I like that.
Two controllers in the box to make it more of a family living room item than something just for the solo gamer. This was a calculated move. Man, this entire package is so unbelievably old.
Man, I wonder how much this costs to buy a brand new in the box NES.
That it almost just looks alien, doesn't it? The controllers, the types of cables and the adapters you find here, none of it even resembles what we use today. I can't believe I'm about to switch on a console from 1985. And this TV, I've never seen anything like it. And apparently it turns on by... No. Let's try that again. Now we turn the console on. Wait. What? The game is booted up the second you turn the power button on. And you've actually got physical dials to be able to adjust the picture profile on the screen.
That's hard. Is that a... Yeah, I mean, it's a real NES. I mean, an original NES, because he hooked it up to that old school TV, but it looks kind of small, doesn't it? It looks like one of the mini consoles.
Entire thing is just so satisfying. This is going to sound ridiculous, but bear with me here, because with a 1.7 megahertz processor,
it's probably just the camera angle.
A whole 2 kilobytes of RAM and a maximum resolution of 240p, the NES was actually spec'd like a next-gen machine when compared to the Atari 2600s that people were playing before them. And as a huge fan of just video games in general, the craziest part of this for me is that this console is the console where Nintendo launched the first ever Zelda game, and more importantly, the first ever Mario game. Let's plug the Player One controller in.
I wasn't into Zelda games back in the day. I know that that's crazy to say. If I would have gotten into it, I don't think it would have been the Zelda on the NES. All due respect to OGs.
Oh my gosh. This feels like such a moment in gaming history. Like, imagine if you could have taken the small group of developers that made this and showed them what Mario would actually become today. You can hear that same jump sound even in today's games. And it's crazy that the entire game basically works with one face button. The text itself is kind of hard to read because of how low the resolution is, but the game is very playable even today. Regardless, this little red plumber was an instant hit.
That cord hanging over that TV would drive me nuts. Is that how he played games as a kid? Is that how you guys play games as a kid? You just let the cord dangle in front of the TV? That would drive me insane.
And when you combine Mario with the console's beautiful, clean graphics, its branding as a must-have toy instead of a games console, as well as its rock-bottom price of $250 in today's money, you can probably see how it became the most popular console in history, selling 61.9 million units, which was enough that Nintendo had arguably saved the entire video game industry. That by the time they decided to release the NES's successor, they didn't even have to worry about a dying market anymore. And what a successor it was. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
That right there. Man, yo, low key, I ain't even gonna hold you, man. Super Nintendo, that might be the greatest system of all time. Better than, I'm not being sarcastic. Greater than PlayStation 5, Xbox, like Super Nintendo might be the best system of all time. The graphics on the pixel art, it just holds up so much better. Like, it not trying to look ultra realistic. The retro games that I play are mostly on the Super Nintendo. I've been playing my AYN Odin lately so much more than my Steam Deck because I've just been playing Super Nintendo games. Man, that's a classic console. Like Mega Man, Super Mario World, Chrono Trigger, Rocky Road, who nobody ever talks about except me. I don't care. I'm always putting Rocky Road on my top 10 gamer list. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
For real. Oh my gosh, y'all sleeping on. Let me know in the comments if you have ever played Rocky Road, okay? Man.
Released about 5 years later at a much higher price.
Oh, Super Metroid. Had to throw that in there. Classic.
Price tag of $450 in today's money was basically an NES with every aspect dialed up to the max. For starters, the controller was probably the single most important controller ever made, bringing in a smoother, more hand-friendly design, 2 extra face buttons, X and Y, that set the standard for how all future controllers would be made, and also shoulder buttons. All controllers up until this point relied almost entirely on your thumbs as the only input. But this controller is what made gamers realize that actually every single finger could be an input. And this would allow for games with a new tier of complexity. Whether it be drifting in Super Mario Kart or aiming your arm cannon diagonally in Super Metroid. Yeah, Nintendo loved using the word super. It was basically their way of saying next gen. There's a similarly enormous set of cables and adapters to last.
I feel like they should have named the Switch 2 the Super Switch. That would have been so, oh my gosh, I can't get my words. I said that would have been so dope. That would have been super dope if they would have called it the Super Switch. Also, by the way, this video released last year, so this does not include the Switch 2.
And then the SNES itself, which is actually lighter than I expected.
I haven't seen this video before, but, you know, by the date, of course.
For something that's an absolute beast in performance. And I'm not exaggerating when I use the term beast. The way to calculate graphics power is a little
Donkey Kong Country? I'm sorry. Super Nintendo. And I'm willing to put my flag down. Super Nintendo is the greatest console of all time.
For these early consoles. But just to give you an idea of how much more capable it could be, the SNES came with 64 times the amount of RAM versus their last machine. What is it with the pull tabs on these old TVs? I I love the clickiness of everything. It's also so crazy that this is what the games used to look like. And then to turn the console on, there is a switch.
I mean, if you're in Japan, not if you. Why is he showing us a Japanese Super Nintendo? Oh wait, I'm super confused. No pun intended. That looks like a Japanese Super Nintendo, doesn't it? But it should be the Super Famicom. Excuse me. But it says Super Nintendo. Were there Super Nintendos released that also look like this? Because I do not remember the cartridges looking like that. I feel like that's a Japanese cartridge. Y'all know more than me, though. Let me know.
A Nintendo Switch. Nintendo presents. Ah, that's so much better. Music in this video is giving me chills. And it's also noticeably higher resolution music than the last console. In a way, the SNES was the pinnacle of 2D gaming, just before the 3D era. With this much power, developers could basically make any 2D game they wanted to. So if we compare Super Mario World on the SNES versus Super Mario Bros. On the NES...
That's crazy. That's such a jump in quality. See, that's one of the things that, like, is missing nowadays is the exponential jump in quality, right? I said it before, but it took me so long to get a PS5. I literally just got a PS5 this year in 2025 because the PS4 looked so good. I'm like, you know, it's kind of like where they're at with phones. Like, phones have gotten so good now. It's just incremental changes. Like, the camera gets a little better. The screen gets a little bigger. Like, you have to do something completely different, like making your phone literally fold open and stuff for it to be such a drastic change. And that's kind of where they're at with video games to a certain extent. It's starting to get kind of stagnant. You know, they're going to have to do something. Well, they don't got to do nothing. They're making billions of dollars. Let's get that out there. But it's just minor upgrades. But the jump from the NES to the Super Nintendo, and then the jump from the Super Nintendo to the N64, like, those are crazy leaps in technology.
Backgrounds feel so much more alive, with multiple layers moving at different speeds as you walk to simulate things being closer and further away from you. It's also a shocking amount sharper. Like, text on this is barely readable. This one has like no problems at all. And objects also have proper lighting and shadows for the first time ever. Now that that has become my benchmark, I can almost feel the wonder that people must have felt when stepping into this game for the first time. Why am I excited by the fact that Mario has a new spinny jump?
I really like the way that he's doing this side by side old school television CRT like comparison. Is really dope. It's really creative. I like this.
The SNES,
I haven't seen this done before.
Didn't quite trounce the sales figures of the original NES, but for a console released only a few years later, the fact that it still sold 49.
And the reason why it didn't sell as much, well, one of the reasons is because they had a hard time convincing parents, like, this is a whole new console. Like, people understand now. They're like, oh, okay, a PlayStation 1 isn't the same as a PlayStation 3. But then parents are like, Mario is Mario. Well, I just bought my kid Mario, you know, a few years ago. Why am I buying a Mario all over again? Like, people were having a hard time wrapping their heads around, like, a sequel console. Which I don't really understand why, because, like, you look at like the Atari 2600 and, well, I really don't know Atari's whole numbering system, so maybe it made no sense at all. But yeah.
Million units is nothing to be scoffed at. But with consoles like Sony's first PlayStation leading the charge into 3D gaming very shortly after, Nintendo had to find a way to keep up. Enter the Nintendo 64. Named after its new 64-bit chip that could now process data in larger chunks at a time, making it perfect for 3D. Man, this box is so wacky. Love it. And the controller, equally so. But as much as it does look like something Batman might throw at a villain's face, this was just as big of a deal as the SNES controller, thanks to the invention of the analog stick by a Nintendo employee. You're going to start to notice
I never knew that.
a theme in this video, that even more so than the machines themselves, the key to Nintendo's console success is all about controller innovation. And then we've got the console, which is almost as weird looking as the controller. Now here's the thing, the Nintendo 64 had all...
Wow, controller innovation. I never thought about that. Like, because next, what's the GameCube? I'm not really sure what's too innovative about that. He'll probably say, I can't think of anything offhand, but the Wii, and then the Switch, like they come off the console. Yeah, that's pretty deep.
The ingredients of a slam dunk console. Firstly, as you might have guessed by how it's literally named after its new processor, this was the most powerful console in the world. The fact that we had a 64-bit processor in a machine that was literally $300 in today's money, this was almost science fiction.
Y'all ever seen that that meme? Hold on, let me pull it up. It's Easy cruising down the street in my 6'4".
And it made this thing approximately 30 times more powerful than the SNES. Or, what's even harder to grasp, 1,920 times more powerful than the NES. Why is there a button here? That makes no sense. But the analog stick was a game changer. The analog stick made the Nintendo 64 the most natural way to traverse 3D environments. Plus, the biggest thing that separated Nintendo from other console titans like Sony and Microsoft was the fact that they weren't just console designers, they were game developers. So they never just made the box and then hoped lots of great games were made for it. They made the box and the main games that you'd want to buy with it. I'm just now realizing this has 4 controller ports compared to 2 on every past console. The N64 was home to truly legendary games like Zelda Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye, and Super Mario 64. You bet we're gonna test it. Thankfully a TV I understand. I love these switches. And the other upside is that your pet can no longer turn your gaming console off. You can actually see it take a minute to get to the right level of brightness. Oh my gosh. I can't even begin to describe the difference here. Mario 64 might just be the most influential video game.
That's such a gap. That's such a huge technological gap. Or leap, rather.
Ever. You can see how Mario 64 was
leaping over a gap.
the proof of concept for how future 3D worlds would work, how you'd be able to move within them, how the camera would follow you, and how you'd be able to interact with objects inside of it. Remember, this is all new. You could argue that SNES games have actually aged better, because 2D games that look like that are still a thing now.
That's exactly the point I was making.
Whereas 3D games that look like this are not. But putting myself in the shoes of someone whose best gaming experience so far was that, and handing them this, I would have paid to see their reactions. So why didn't it do better? Even with all of this going for it, the N64 only managed to sell 30.
Because the PlayStation crushed, man. The PlayStation crushed. But let's see what he says.
2.9 million units in its lifetime, which almost makes it seem like Nintendo is trying so hard for nothing. And to put it simply, it's because they now had a major competitor in the form of PlayStation. The PS1, while not as capable on paper, beat Nintendo to market with a 3D capable machine by a full...
And CDs. And Nintendo just being stubborn, keeping stuff on cartridges. And when you buy a PlayStation, you also get a CD player, right? That's just like with the PS2, you also get a DVD player. You're not just buying just the console, you're buying an entertainment system. Nintendo stubborn with these daggone cartridges, and then the Dreamcast comes out. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm sorry, not the Dreamcast. The GameCube, my bad. The GameCube comes out. It's like, okay, they finally got CDs. Oh, they're micro CDs. They're the size of this right here.
2 years, which was enough of a lead that all the pioneers who really wanted a 3D console, they already had one. This was no doubt extremely frustrating for Nintendo. So when it came time for their follow-up console, the GameCube, they made sure that they released closer to the next PlayStation, the PS2, and they made sure that they used a similar disc-based format, and they made sure that when it came to power, they beat it. And that with the machine itself, they outdid them completely. This is a very meaty console. Everything in this box is just much denser than before. The wiring, the controller that looks like it's from another planet, and of course the machine itself. It genuinely gives off the vibe of a mini supercomputer, apart from the cute little handle on top that also makes it look like a lunchbox. But the console does send a very clear
they could deal without the handle.
message. You want to play 3D games?
Let me know in the comments, did you ever use that handle to carry around your GameCube?
With incredible graphics, this is the box you need. And it has the specs to back it up too. Compared to the N64, it's approximately 5 times more powerful. You ready for yet another nostalgia hit? Oh my gosh. That's the GameCube screen. You can instantly tell it's higher resolution. Gotta say, Nintendo was definitely playing the weird card here. Nothing about this controller makes any sense. Like, only one side of the controller has 2 shoulder buttons. The second analog stick is so tiny and strange. And the face buttons too. What is this arrangement? The shoulder buttons travel so far.
It's been so long since I held a GameCube controller.
And then when you get to the bottom, they have this click. That's so nice. I can see why people still use this thing today. Right, Simba is behind the consoles. Please don't unplug anything. There we go. This is an enormous jump. Like, the amount of effects on display here is a world above. The water looks amazing. And you can even feel how hot it is in the game because of how heat distorts things that are further away. The resolution is 480p, or 4.5 times the number of pixels versus the N64, which is an enormous jump. But I wouldn't say it looks 4.5 times as sharp, which is at least in part due to the fact that the N64 was designed with CRT TVs in mind. And also the fact that with later consoles, Nintendo has opted for a smoother, more refined look. I almost feel bad for Nintendo, because even with the intense focus on trying to make the best console they possibly could, even with an exceptional controller and a pretty reasonable price of $330 in today's money, the GameCube sold even worse than the N64, with a total of 21.75 million units.
Oh wow.
And you could point to the lack of online gaming as a reason.
But you know what's gonna bring them back to life? You already know.
Or maybe the fact that the GameCube focused too much on Nintendo's own games and lacked third-party support. But I think the crux of it is just the competition. The PS2 it was up against sold like nothing we've ever seen before, at 158 million units. Not to mention, Xbox had just joined the battle too, with huge games like Halo and Fable further squeezing Nintendo's share of the gaming pie. But this failure taught Nintendo their most important lesson yet. It's time to talk about the Wii. And if you're enjoying this video, then
There it goes. There it goes, folks. The granny console. The console that was in every house and every senior citizen home.
sub to the channel would be really good. It took until this point, 2006, for Nintendo to realize that they didn't want to compete with PlayStation and Xbox anymore. But more importantly, that they didn't need to. That the joy of gaming didn't require the most chonky, extreme-powered machine. And so with this console, there was a complete paradigm shift in thinking. This is when Nintendo started focusing on fun. And in doing so, created their most successful...
Which is what you think a gaming company would be, right? Because, you know, you play games to have...
widely appealing console ever. In fact, without even unboxing the console, you can already see how they managed to appeal to the everyday person who might not even call themselves a gamer. This is the most organized console package I've ever seen, with 2 drawers to separate the different sets of parts. And it comes with literally everything. An enormous operations manual, a stand to keep the console upright. There's yet another controller that had never been seen before, and arguably the craziest one yet, even a case to protect the controller. Who does that? These companies make so much money off players breaking their controllers and then having to buy new ones. But there's more. You've got the sensor bar to detect motion from your controllers, a couple of cables for power and connection to the TV, and then the machine itself. And this is also very different. You can probably tell by how it only takes up a small part of the overall package. The console's tiny size, or its simple design, that's far less about trying to look like a high-end gaming rig like most consoles, and more about trying to blend in. That the promise of the Wii isn't really about the console. The hardware itself is only a 1.27 times improvement over the GameCube, which by gaming console standards is completely unheard of. And this must have been a very scary move for Nintendo to make, because each generation up until this point was all about power. More power was the entire way that you could offer gamers more possibilities within your games. And while Nintendo was sat here making 1.27 times improvements, Sony and Microsoft were making 20, 30x improvements to their hardware. But what it all came down to was this. This was when Nintendo's
The Wiimote, which is a very, very genius name for a controller.
continuous focus on controller innovation finally paid off. You'll notice it looks a lot like a TV remote, and that even the Wii's interface looks like a TV's interface, with each app being a channel that you had to point your remote at. None of this was an accident. Given that Nintendo is now purposefully giving up on the traditional hardcore console gamer, they needed to make sure that this console was as simple as possible for the new, more casual audience they were now going after. People who may never have used a games console before. How do you do that? Well, make it as similar as possible to what they're already used to. Genius. We've got my
Yeah, that's brilliant. It really is.
own personalized me ready to go.
I mean, it sucks when you hold it sideways and try to use it like a regular controller, but I mean, it is brilliant.
Love this music. Such a headbanger. Alright, let's play some games. It's so weird, like to play this game you also have to attach what they call the nunchuck accessory, just really to give you a joystick. Okay, so you can definitely tell that the game objects have stepped up in complexity. The game is also a little bit sharper, but it definitely doesn't feel next gen. To be honest, I'd say the biggest change as far as the gameplay is concerned is more the ambition of the title itself. Nintendo's gone from exploring an island to exploring galaxies. But do you know what actually sealed the deal for this console?
All right, this is what we're going to do. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite game for each of these Nintendo consoles, okay? I'm a start, okay? So for the NES, my favorite game, I cannot pronounce it because it's in Japanese. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, y'all, I can't pronounce this. No, this isn't it. This isn't it. Okay, sorry. My bad. All right. Is this game. Also known as Shatter Hand or Shatter Fist here in America. But I prefer this one because instead of it being like a white dude punching everything, it's like a robot dude. So I can imagine myself. Isn't it crazy? I can imagine myself being a robot more than I can imagine myself being white. Oh my gosh. I can't explain it, but if you black.
If you know, you know.
All right. So, and that's not a shot at white people. That's just, I can't imagine. You know what I'm saying? All right. Let's see. So NES and Super Nintendo, I would say, either Mega Man or Super Metroid. If I had to say one, I would say Mega Man X specifically. N64. Man, you know which game gets a lot of slack on N64, but in my opinion is a good game is Donkey Kong 64. People hate that game for some reason. I think it's a good game. Donkey Kong 64, okay. Now GameCube. Am I missing one? Hold on. Donkey Kong 64. Oh my gosh, my stomach is growling. I don't know if the mic is picking that up. Golly. All right, GameCube. I would say Mario Sunshine. The Wii. I would say Rabbids, the one where they're trying to go to space. I can't remember what that's called. I didn't have a Wii U, so I don't know about that. Then the Switch. Oh, man. What is my favorite Switch game? If I'm saying exclusive Nintendo, oh man, that's a tough one. I'm gonna come back to that.
It was the fact that every single Wii at launch came bundled with a free copy of Wii Sports, which was little more than a mini-gaming concept. 5 different sports that you can play with these almost comically low-budget looking characters. Gamers laughed at it, but their grandmas didn't. For a casual gamer, this was the most seamless, organic gaming experience they'd ever had before. You could have your entire family playing at the same time, you could customize these characters to look like the people playing, and the gameplay itself required, no joke, zero explanation. All leading the Wii to shatter everyone's sales expectations at 102 million units. But the best part of this is that they did this not by stealing Sony and Xbox's market share, but instead bringing a whole new audience into the world of gaming.
Staying in their lane, doing what they do.
So, Nintendo finally got that big break they'd worked so hard for. But where'd you go from there? Well, the Wii U.
You. No, not me, you.
Yes, I am you.
And I gotta say, this is the least Nintendo-feeling unboxing experience. Very much a weighty, premium, more mature package than the more toy-like appearance of past consoles. Another enormous manual pack, again, a free game in the box, perhaps trying to replicate the success of Wii Sports with the Wii. And being the premium pack, this box is absolutely rammed with all manner of peripherals. And we haven't even got to the second part of the package, which has the console. Oh my gosh, this is the best peel I've ever experienced. It's really good. And then, yet another completely new type of controller. So here's what I think happened with the Wii U. Nintendo thought,
I'll tell you what I think happened with it, and then we'll listen to him say probably the exact same thing. They did a horrible job naming the console. I consider myself to be a gamer. I did not know the Wii U was a console until I heavy got into games. I've always loved games, had different consoles, collected consoles and everything. I did not know the Wii U was a thing of its own. I thought it was just an accessory.
okay, we've got the casual gamer. The Wii brand is so strong and uncontested that when we release the next gen Wii, all those casual gamers are obviously going to buy it. But how do we make this also appeal to traditional gamers? Because remember, that's where the major money is. While the original Wii proved that casual gamers will buy consoles, they tend to be far less interested in buying lots of games for them. This is why I think Nintendo's gone for such mature packaging. This is why they've offered the console in both a casual basic version as well as the slick black premium version. This is why Nintendo's gone back to making big power jumps, with the Wii U's graphics processing unit being slated as 20 times more powerful than the Wii's, making it approximately 240,000 times more powerful than the original NES. And this is why they came up with the Wii U gamepad. This was the key selling point in Nintendo's marketing. A gamepad
That was like the pre-Switch, like the Wii U walked so the Switch could run.
that can connect to the console over Wi-Fi and stream the game running on the console onto the screen of your handheld, which had two major implications. That you could A, play the majority of your games entirely on the gamepad, providing you were in range, which meant that even if someone else wanted to use the TV to watch the sports game, you could still carry on using your console in its entirety, which is actually wildly impressive to look at. This is so much slicker and sharper and faster than the Wii's interface. But also, it allows you to have a dual screen experience. Nintendo had already found with their handheld DS consoles that there was an appetite for one screen that showed you the main gameplay and then a secondary screen that you could interact with. And the Wii U basically brought that same concept into the home console realm. The gamepad truly feels like it was designed for the real nerd gamer. So, me. Well, Nintendo made sure that the Wii U also still worked with their old Wii motion controllers to capture that same magic for the casual player. Oh wow, this is true next generation compared to that. This immediately makes the Nintendo Wii look old school. Ah, it's got real-time shadows too, so you can see as I hop under this tree, the shade is also present on my character. As far as graphics are concerned, this is an everything upgrade. This is textures, lighting, shadows, effects. This is 720p gaming running at 60 frames per second. The jump is literally the difference between feeling retro and feeling modern day. The problem, though, is that I think in trying to appeal to both serious and casuals, they've actually appealed to neither. They've tried to make the console look and sound similar to the Wii, to signal to the casual fans that this is the new Wii, but in doing so have made it thoroughly unexciting for the serious gamers, who dismissed it out the gate as just more simple minigames. This new gamepad wasn't enough to satisfy the serious gamers, who wanted big screen experiences, not small screen experiences. And at the same time, it was just confusing to the more casual players, making the Wii U seem like an add-on for the Wii as opposed to a new console entirely. And 3.
Yeah, and I don't really even consider myself a casual gamer, and that's literally exactly how I felt.
It wasn't powerful enough to take on the PS4, but it was powerful enough that when paired with all the other sensors that you need to make this work.
Nobody I knew had a Wii U. I only seen a Wii U once in like around that time, and it was my friend's son had one. And I just noticed it in the living room.
It was very expensive, with the deluxe pack that I've got here starting at $450 in today's money. As someone who was a handheld gamer first, I actually loved the Wii U, and I was so unbelievably jealous of those who could pre-order it and actually hold one of these in their hands. But it didn't take long to find out that commercially, this was a complete and utter failure, selling less than any other Nintendo home console in history.
Oh, no!
But it's funny how these things work, because for the second time, right after Nintendo's biggest failure, they were about to have their biggest success. The Nintendo...
And that is why you don't let your failures stop you. You just keep going and just keep trying to innovate, because you don't know what you don't know.
Switch is actually a very similar idea to the Wii U before it, but it's just the extra 5 years of tech advancements that had happened since then allowed Nintendo? Nintendo? That might be a funny joke. Nintendo.
No.
But it's just the extra 5 years of tech advancements that had happened since then allowed Nintendo to actually execute the concept properly. It's a smaller, lighter box than before. You get a power cable, and then a bunch of accessories for, would you believe it, a completely new type of controller, the Joy-Cons. And then the console, which is a little different. Right, I'm just going to say it now. I think the Nintendo Switch is the most intelligently designed console on this planet. The idea is the same as...
Yeah, I agree. I know I said the Super Nintendo earlier, but I'm specifically referring to the games on the Super Nintendo. As far as the console itself, I totally 100% agree. That was a brilliant idea.
The Wii U of being able to play your games either on the big screen or in handheld, but because the power is located in the handheld itself, as opposed to having to stream it over Wi-Fi, you can take this console anywhere and instant resume your game from where you left off, all while it charges up your Joy-Cons automatically. But it gets better, because the way these Joy-Cons are able to separate from the console and can work independently by just flipping them sideways means that you can have multiplayer gaming. And then the cherry on top
You
is
can have the worst feeling controllers ever.
that by embedding them with gyro sensors, they've even managed to recreate the motion controls of the Wii and the Wii U without needing to stick a fiddly sensor on top of your TV. Now, the Switch is not super impressive to the nerd within me, with a pretty crummy display by smartphone standards, and occasional issues with the Joy-Con joysticks drifting even when you're not touching them, and also just the simple fact that this is not a big power upgrade, being only about 1.5 times the power of the Wii U, or about 370,000 times the power of the NES, which, when you put it that way, actually sounds really impressive. But the key thing is that in the exact same way that Nintendo managed to separate themselves from Sony and Xbox with the Wii, by targeting a completely new type of gamer, the Switch has also been separated by being a legitimate handheld console in its own right. Now, all that stuff about power said, this is still a definitively...
Okay, I thought about it. I think that my favorite Switch exclusive game would be Mario Wonder. That's the game that me and my family enjoy playing together the most. So, and I think it's different. I think it's a definite upgrade from every other 2D Mario, because I was really sick and tired of 2D Mario games. They were so stale. It seemed like, especially like on the handhelds, it seemed like they just kept releasing the same games over and over. And my bad. And Mario
experience in the Wii.
My bad. And Mario Wonder was like a breath of fresh air.
It's a combination of modern graphical techniques, of more advanced ways to interact with the environment, more complex game mechanics, better control over the camera, just all the kind of modern quality of life improvements that you
That's if I'm going to pick a Nintendo exclusive, because if I'm talking about like third parties and indie devs and stuff, it's something completely different probably.
expect with a game today. Like, the way that I can spin the hat on my head by using motion controls is really immersive. The best compliment I could give it is that I play games on a PlayStation 5, and coming from that, this is good enough that it doesn't feel jarring. And when you pair the frankly genius design of the console...
No. I take that back. That's not my favorite game. Pokemon Legends Arceus. That is my favorite Nintendo Switch exclusive game. Okay, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Take back all the Mario Wii stuff. Forget that. Pokemon Legends Arceus. Yes.
itself, with a games lineup that includes all the main series Pokemon games, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Animal Crossing and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'm not even surprised that this thing has already sold 111 million units, and we're only partway through its life cycle. I don't think I've ever seen a more beautiful sight than what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a really dope setup.
Except maybe this app called Honeygain. It's a genuinely
Okay, all right, y'all. So let me know in the comments your favorite game on each console. Okay, I appreciate you guys checking me out. Thank you for returning, and I am on my journey to try to get to 1,000 subs before the end of the year. So if you know anybody who likes this type of content, please share it with them. Also, I am giving away a Trim UI brick. If you subscribe and you look in the community tab, you can see how to potentially win one. So I appreciate you guys. God bless and salutations to the nations. Peace.
Angel Nine.